In the history of civilization, certain debates do not remain confined to books or lecture halls. They spill outward, shaping how entire societies understand truth itself. The disagreement between Al-Ghazali and Ibn Rushd was one of those moments. It was not simply a clash between two scholars, but between two visions of reality, one grounded in divine omnipotence and the other in divine rationality. Their conflict would decide whether philosophy could survive within Islam, and centuries later, it would determine where the legacy of Greek thought would ultimately take root. But before these men ever wrote a single word, a much older civilization had already begun influencing the Muslim world. When the Islamic Empire expanded in the 7th and 8th century, Muslims came into contact with the lands that had once belonged to the Greeks, Romans, and Persians. With these territories came libraries, manuscripts, and intellectual traditions stretching back nearly 1,000 years. During the Abbasid Caliphate, and to be more specific, in Baghdad, this encounter with ancient knowledge became institutionalized. The House of Wisdom, or in Arabic, Bayt al-Hikmah, was established as a center where scholars translated Greek works into Arabic. Aristotle's logical treatises, Plato's metaphysical dialogues, and scientific writings on medicine and astronomy were all preserved and studied. These texts introduced powerful ideas. Greek philosophers argued that the universe was governed by rational laws, that events occurred through necessary causes, and that the human intellect was capable of discovering truth independently of revelation. For many Muslim scholars, this knowledge seemed useful and even harmonious with Islam, but for others it raised unsettling questions. If reason alone could reach truth, what was the role of prophecy? If causes operated necessarily, where did divine will fit in? From this translation movement emerged a new intellectual tradition within Islam, falsafa, or philosophy. Early thinkers such as Al-Kindi argued that philosophy was simply the pursuit of truth and could not contradict revelation. Al-Farabi went even further, attempting to synthesize Plato and Aristotle into a single coherent system and presenting philosophy as the highest form of human knowledge. The most influential figure of this movement was Ibn Sina. His philosophical system dominated the Islamic world for centuries. He argued that existence itself could be divided between the necessary and the contingent, that God was the necessary being, and that the universe flowed from him through a rational cosmic order. For Ibn Sina, human intellect could achieve certainty through logical demonstration. Revelation, while true, expressed these philosophical realities in symbolic language for the general population. Philosophy therefore became the domain of the intellectual elite, while religion guided society as a whole. This worldview placed reason at the center of knowledge, and that elevation could soon provoke a powerful response. Abu Hamid al-Ghazali was trained in the very sciences he would later critique. He studied logic, philosophy, theology, and law, mastering the works of Ibn Sina and his predecessors. But rather than finding certainty, al-Ghazali found out. In his spiritual autobiography, he described a crisis in which reason itself lost its reliability. He concluded that philosophy promised certainty but could not deliver it, and that reliance on intellect alone threatened sincere faith. His response came in the form of Tahafut al-Falasifa, the incoherence of the philosophers. In this work, Al-Ghazali accused the philosophers of contradicting Islam in fundamental doctrines. He argued that they erred gravely in claiming the eternity of the universe, denying bodily resurrection, and asserting that God knows only universals rather than particular events. Yet his most revolutionary argument concerned causality. Al-Ghazali rejected the Aristotelian idea that causes produce effects by necessity. Fire does not burn cotton because of an inherent power, he argued. Rather, God creates the burning each time fire touches cotton. What humans perceive as natural law is merely God's habitual action. He wrote that the connection between cause and effect is not logically necessary. God may suspend it whenever He wills. In doing so, Al-Ghazali preserved divine omnipotence, ensuring that nothing in creation could limit God's freedom. After Al-Ghazali, rational metaphysics gradually declined in much of the Islamic world. Though, more than a century later, in Muslim Spain, Ibn Rushd encountered Al-Ghazali's work. He was deeply troubled by what he read. To him, Al-Ghazali had not merely criticized philosophy, he had undermined the very possibility of knowledge. Ibn Rushd believed that reason was a divine gift. To deny its reliability was to deny God's wisdom in creating an intelligible universe. In response, he wrote Tahafut al-Tahafut, the incoherence of the incoherence. In this work, he defended Aristotelian casualty, arguing that without stable cause, learning becomes impossible. Medicine, astronomy, law, and theology all presuppose order in nature. If every event occurs independently of causes, then the universe becomes unintelligible. Ibn Rushd famously declared, "Truth does not contradict truth." If demonstrative reason appears to conflict with scripture, the conflict lies in interpretation, not reality. Revelation and reason came from the same divine source, and therefore cannot truly oppose one another. For Ibn Rushd, philosophy was not a threat to religion, it was a duty for those capable of it. At the heart of their disagreement lay two fundamentally different visions of God and knowledge. Al-Ghazali feared that philosophy restricted divine power by chaining God to natural laws. Ibn Rushd feared that denying causality reduced God's creation to chaos. Al-Ghazali believed certainty came through submission and spiritual insight. Ibn Rushd believed certainty came through rational demonstration. One prioritized God's absolute will, the other emphasized God's rational order. They were not debating minor theological points. They were debating whether the universe itself was intelligible. In the Islamic world, Al-Ghazali's synthesis of theology, law, and spirituality became dominant. His work shaped religious education for centuries. Philosophy survived, but cautiously. In Europe, however, Ibn Rushd's writings were translated into Latin. Medieval scholars called him simply the commentator. Through him, Aristotle returned to Europe, laying intellectual foundations that would later help produce the Renaissance. Two Muslim thinkers, two opposite legacies. One shaped Islamic theology, the other shaped Western philosophy. The debate between Al-Ghazali and Ibn Rushd was never truly resolved, because it was never only about philosophy. It was about how human beings approach truth itself. Al-Ghazali feared that unchecked reason could lead people away from humility and dependence on God. Ibn Rushd feared that suppressing reason would turn faith into fear rather than understanding. One sought to protect belief by limiting the intellect. The other sought to honor belief by trusting it. History carried their ideas in different directions. Al-Ghazali's influence shaped Islamic theology and spirituality, while Ibn Rushd's work helped reignite philosophy in Europe, yet neither visions disappeared entirely. Their disagreement still echoes today whenever faith meets science, whenever belief meets doubt, and whenever people ask whether truth is something we submit to or something we strive to understand. In that sense, the conversation between Al-Ghazali and Ibn Rushd never ended. It simply became our own.